Hi, I'm Phil Ashey from the American Anglican Council with an Anglican perspective on questions for global Anglicans in the 21st century. Here we are looking at the Cairo Covenant, Section 2 on relational commitments. And in our last episode, we talked about what it means to be in full communion with each other. The flip side to that is being out of communion. And that's where the Anglican communion has really suffered and become dysfunctional, because it's not been clear when people disagree on matters of faith and practice what their relationships actually are. So we've talked about impaired communion and damaged communion and walking together but not holding hands, walking somewhat apart. All of this glossing over tremendous crises in false teaching. And so in the same paragraph that talks about what it means for members of the Global South Anglican Fellowship to be in full communion with each other, they close with the flip side. And listen to this. This is a very important statement. It says, our churches, meaning our members of this Global South communion, are out of communion with those churches that allow the blessing of same-sex relationships or purport to solemnize same-sex marriages in their doctrine and practice, or admit to holy orders those in same-sex unions, and those churches that pursue other significant departures from biblical teaching. What is this saying? It's saying, look, we want to be really clear. Our fellowship, our mission together, our life together, to quote a phrase from Bonhoeffer, is based on the fact that we recognize and can say, you hold the same faith that I do. And where you don't, where you are departing from that faith in significant ways, and yes, we mentioned the whole issues of same-sex marriages and holy orders, but you notice it isn't just about sex. They say, and those churches that pursue other significant departures from biblical teaching. Again, the guardrails are biblical teaching, clearly understood, plain as the nose on our face. And what they're saying is we're not going to be in communion with those churches that simply reject biblical teaching, plain, authoritative, clear biblical teaching. That is a huge statement. And that's a discipline that this Global South Covenant imparts at the global level of communion that has not been imparted and exercised before. That is a huge step forward in healing the Anglican communion. Now, temper that with what is said in the following paragraph, paragraph 2.1.8. Our fidelity to the sacred heritage that we have received prompts us to repent of our failings in keeping the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace in God's household. Isn't that wonderful? This is not just a lording over and being pugnacious. It's saying, look, we're all sinners, and we failed to keep the unity ourselves, and we repent of that. We recognize that tensions and dislocations amongst Orthodox Anglicans can arise over differences in strategy. Well, we see that even in the tensions between those that are going to go to Lambeth Conference 2020 and try to make a witness, and those who refuse to go because they've long since recognized, as I've written elsewhere, that it's a setup to go to those Lambeth conferences, that the document has already been written, decisions have already been made, and you're only there for the photo op. But there are bishops who've not been, and they feel very passionate that they want to have their voices heard and that they might be able to turn things around. And our problem among biblically faithful Anglicans is that we've too often fought against each other over differences in strategy. And you know what? We need to repent of that. We need to stop doing that. We need to say, look, I disagree that you're going to go to Lambeth 2020. I wouldn't go there, but you know what? There's another gathering in Kigali in June before that. I think you're going to find that much more healthy and helpful to your ministry, so please come to that as well. And to those who don't go to Lambeth 2020, we want to honor you by helping you attend this gathering in Kigali. But we're not going to shoot at each other over these differences in strategy so long as we see that we hold the same essentials of the faith. And so we repent of our failings to share with one another more sacrificially across ethnic, national, and economic divides in the global south, and we confess that our disunity makes us less able to be an effective sign of God's kingdom in the world. You got to love this covenant. And the reason is it has the spirit of humility in it and a recognition that we need to take the beam out of our own eyes before we look at the speck in our brother's eyes. It's full of humility and recognition that we all have a lot of repenting to do, and that the purpose of this covenant is to bring us together and honor Jesus' great prayer in John chapter 17, that we all may be one.